welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Connie.
And today we are going to be going over a case about Angie Samota. But before we get too far into it,
social media. Yes. So we would very much appreciate a like, subscribe, and follow. It would mean a lot to us. You can find us at all of our social medias, which are TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram. The handle for all four is at Chaos Chronicles Podcast, and that's Chronicles with an S.
All right. Well, before we begin, we want to give a trigger warning. And by we, I mean me, because I'm going to be traumatizing Connie along with you guys.
Yeah, I have no idea what this is about. I haven't heard of this case. I got nothing.
Yeah, so in this episode, we're going to be discussing a case that involves graphic, gory details, including things like sexual assault and a very brutal murder. Listener discretion is strongly advised. And if you find these topics distressing or triggering, we recommend skipping this episode or listening with caution.
Listening with caution.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we'd appreciate the views.
Yes.
And the subscribes. Just saying.
We would.
Yep.
So the sources that I used for this episode came from the actual Court of Criminal Appeals of Texas, and then also people.com, bbc.com, and the Washington Post. So several places. So starting out, Angela or Angie Samota was born on September 19th, 1964 in Almada, California. No idea if I said that right. She attended Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas, and she was studying computer science and electrical engineering.
Oh, so she's a smart cookie.
Smart. And also, this is a time of, nowadays it's like rare for women to be in those fields versus back then.
And sorry, what year did you say it was? I think I missed that.
This is, this would be 1981 is when she started Southern Methodist University.
1981. Okay, yeah. So women in STEM wasn't really a push back then.
No, it was not. It is gaining more popularity now, but back then, you go, girl.
You said computer engineering and
computer science and electrical engineering.
Dang. My cousin is going to A&M for something similar this fall. I hope that's where the similarities end.
Let's hope so. So Angie was also in the Zeta Tau Alpha sorority. I had no idea if I said any of that correctly, but she was in a sorority. And she was dating a guy named Ben McCall, and he had already graduated college and was working in construction in the area during this time. Ben described their relationship as being exclusive and comfortable. There wasn't really ever any tension between the two of them, and whenever they both had free time, they would spend all of the time that they could together. One of Angie's friends described Ben as, quote, the cat's meow. And then Angie's stepbrother also testified that Ben was significant and believed that Ben, quote, might be the one.
So Ben and Angie, they were end goals.
Yeah, they were serious. They were the it couple. Yes.
The cat's meow.
I've never heard that before.
Really?
No.
Oh, that's an old one.
Well,
I've heard it from my family before.
Cat's meow.
I didn't understand it for the longest time, and now I'm like, I would like to use that ironically, but I have a feeling just like y'all, it will make its way into my everyday lexicon. And then it will not be ironic. So I'm holding off on that one.
That's fair. All right. So on Friday, October 12th in 1984, Angie went out with two of her friends, Anna Collada, no idea on the last name, and Russell Buchanan. The group of three went to Studebaker's, which was a nightclub, and Angie drove. Essentially at this nightclub, Angie was seeing, just socializing. She knew everyone there. She even got them into the exclusive VIP area of this club because she just knew everybody and was the social butterfly.
Okay, I'm imagining like Elle from Legally Blonde.
I've never watched it.
Girl.
I'm sorry.
At some point, we have to throw that on for a girl's day. It's one that I didn't think I was going to like, but I ended up loving it.
Okay.
Haven't seen the second one
We'll
or the
throw
musical.
We'll throw it on the list.
It's on the list.
It's on the list. Yes. So Russell was an architect student, and Angie did have a boyfriend, which we've already established. Russell did make some romantic advances toward Angie that night, and she politely and firmly rejected him.
Okay, and making sure I'm tracking. Russell is just a friend of Angie's.
Correct.
But he wants more.
Yes.
And Angie's like, no, I'm with Ben. Let's just be friends.
Yes.
Got it. Why do I have a feeling I know where this is going?
After leaving the club, Angie and Anna dropped off Russell at his apartment sometime between 1 and 1:30 in the morning. Angie then went back to her place to grab Anna's curling iron. She had originally planned on spending the night with Angie, but ended up changing her mind because Angie had to get up early the next morning for a football game. Anna testified that she arrived at her dorm sometime between 12:45 and 1:30. Both Anna and Russell testified that Angie did not appear to be intoxicated and believed that she was well in control of her mental and physical being. According to Ben, Angie came over at 1:30 a.m. and woke him up. He recalls the time because he was asleep and looked at the clock when there was knocking at his door. Ben, I did not say this. I must have skipped the bullet point here. He was invited to come out with them that night, but he declined because he works in construction and had to be up very, very early the next day. If you guys don't know about construction workers, sometimes they start at like 4:35 a.m.
Sometimes earlier. My ex worked in construction for a bit for a summer, and I think he had a couple of shifts that started at like 3:15, 4, just because of where they were working and what they were doing.
Yeah, like our neighbors are having an extension put on the back of their house, and we've had workers there anytime. Basically, once 8 a.m. hits, they're gone for the day. They're doing their work between 4 and 8, which is absolutely insane. But so it makes sense. He doesn't want to be going to a club when he has to get up at super, super early hours.
No. Quick shout out to the construction crews. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Yes, yeah. And Lord knows that I cannot do that.
And the power workers.
Yes.
Because we recently had a really bad storm that left a lot of houses, including my house, without power for over 24 hours. And they were working their butts off around the clock. And we got our power up at 3:30 in the morning one day. And we were very happy that it came that morning. So thank you.
The main takeaway here, give love to your blue collar workers because you do not realize how much we depend on them.
Exactly. But so Ben told Angie, go have fun. Like, I support you. Go have a good night.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a good boyfriend does. So Ben said that they talked for a couple minutes. Angie had stopped by to playfully rub in the fact that he had to work early the next morning. And Ben says that the conversation was light, playful, and teasing. About 15 minutes after she left, Ben got a phone call from her, and he said that she was acting very strange. The first thing he recalls her saying was, quote, "Talk to me." Angie seems to be nervous and was rambling, and there were noises going on in the background. Ben asked what the noises were twice before Angie had answered him. She had let a man into her condo to use the bathroom and the telephone. Shortly after, Angie told someone, quote, "Oh, the bathroom's down the hall," end quote. Angie asked Ben if there was a payphone nearby, and Ben said that he is sure that there was one at the convenience store down the road. Angie relayed the information, but Ben couldn't hear if the man responded to her. Angie then told Ben that she would call him back, and she hung up the phone. Ben testified that he became very concerned when Angie didn't call him back. He had tried to call her back several times, and when she didn't answer, he drove to her condo, and it took him 10 minutes to drive over there. On his drive over, he continued to call her with his phone in the truck, but she still did not answer. When Ben got there, he saw Angie's car, and he ran to her front door and knocked. She didn't answer, and the door was locked. Ben then ran around to the back door, but that door was locked as well, and she still was not answering. Ben again called her phone and could hear it ringing in the kitchen. There was no sound coming from Angie's apartment, so he drove to the convenience store that they had talked about over the phone. He drove there, but she was not there, so he drove back to her apartment, and at 2:17 a.m. he called the police. The police arrived to the parking lot at 2:40 a.m., and Ben told the officers what was going on. The police knocked on the door. There was no answer, so the second officer got a key to the condo from the property manager. Ben was instructed to wait at the door while they went in to investigate. The first thing the officer noticed when entering the condo was there was a single black pump on the floor. Like shoe pump?
Oh,
Shoe pump.
got it. Heels, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
It's a type of heel.
Aren't pumps like just the thicker basic? Yeah.
Yep, thicker on the front part of your shoe.
Yeah. He remembered thinking to himself, no one takes off just one shoe and leaves it there. So they found Angie in the second bedroom. The lower half of her body was hanging off the end of the bed. She was naked and covered in blood, lying face up, and her eyes were wide open. Officers went to go check for a pulse, but there was not one. In 2010, that officer testified that he remembered that scene like it was last week because it was so unlike other assaults and murders that he worked with. This, quote, looked like it was the result of evil prying on innocence, end quote. So the officers continued the search of the apartment in case the attacker,
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Like I said, this is a hard episode.
This is a hard.
Deep breath.
Yeah.
The officer continued the search of the apartment in case the attacker was still around. He discovered a smudge of blood on the light switch, blood on the shower curtain, and some residue of blood in the bathtub where it looked like someone was washing off blood. The officer called an ambulance, and the officer went to the bedroom Angie was in. This officer was a female, so the second officer was a female, and she testified that she could still see Angie's blue eyes in 2010. And when she was asked about Angie's wounds, the officer states, quote, it appeared that her heart had been cut out. It was like out of her chest cavity from the sounds of it.
I know we're going to get to cause of death later. Was that post-mortem? Or was that cause of death? Or am I going to find out in a second?
We'll find out. We'll talk about it.
Oh, no.
We'll talk about it.
Oh, no.
So the officers went back out to go tell Ben the news because he's still waiting. When he was told, he tried to run into the condo but was immediately stopped. The officers said that this is something that he should not see, which I agree. I agree. It's hard, but I agree.
Yeah. No, you don't. You will have lasting memories of seeing your loved one in a deceased state, even if it's not
traumatic.
Like, I still vividly remember my grandma with a sheet over her at the funeral home the night she died.
Mm-hmm.
And she died in her 80s at home, natural causes. And that was memorable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. it's traumatic no matter what, but that is something that you do not want to see. He was extremely quiet after this, but Ben remained cooperative and stayed there with the cops and answered questions and all that stuff. When the ambulance arrived, the paramedics confirmed that she was dead, and the medical examiner also arrived and confirmed that too. The detectives noted that there was no sign of forced entry. The back door had been deadbolted, and the front door was locked. The sliding glass door was also intact and locked. They discovered that Ben did not have a set of keys to the condo at all. The front door lock was one of them that automatically locked when the door was shut, though. So it's one that you can like lock and you can open it from the inside, leave, and it's still it's locked.
Mm-hmm.
I had one of those in my dorm room. So the officers also found that there was a missing knife from Angie's kitchen knife set. They believed that this could have been the murder weapon, but the knife or another weapon was never found. So still to this day, there's no murder weapon. Angie's phone was on the counter and it was wiped clean. The detectives lifted several prints from the hall bathroom, drinking glasses, the toilet lid, and a dry cleaning bag that was found next to Angie's body. None of the prints were bloody, and all of the fingerprints were Angie's except one palm print on the toilet lid that was never identified. They were not able to get any prints off of the bloodstains or smudges that were found, and there were no foreign hairs found on the bed, clothes, or even Angie's body. They brought in a blood pattern analysis, and they had that done from the photographs taken at the crime scene. There's a lot of details that you guys can go check out, and it doesn't really add anything to this story. It just says how the attacker killed her, essentially. The significant findings from that, though, that I will add, is that the attacker was right-handed, and the attacker was also probably on top of her while stabbing her. And due to the size of the void areas, the assailant was probably a fairly large individual and appeared that his hand was covering her mouth. So, the autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
The autopsy occurred about 12 hours after she was killed, and some of the significant findings are as follows. A cut in the web of Angie's left thumb, a small scratch across the back of her left hand, and superficial cuts on her right hand. These are indicative of defense wounds and are, quote, made when a victim tries to ward off blows by the attacker, end quote. So she was stabbed in the chest 18 times. At least 2 of those 18 penetrated her sternum, which takes an incredible amount of force to do so.
Even still, stabbing someone 18 times. Like, I feel like people don't understand the amount of force that truly takes because we're so desensitized from video games and movies and TV.
Criminal Minds.
Yeah. Love the shows, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, like, stabbing someone with that much force
that many times
and in the time frame, because again, we're operating between a window of probably about, she was at Ben's at 1:30, stayed for about 15 minutes.
Yep.
Left around 1:45, takes about 10 minutes to get to her apartment. So we're thinking like 2 o'clock. Ben got there at like 2:10, 2:15.
Mm-hmm. So go a little bit up here.
Because I know Ben called the cops at 2:17.
So Angie was over at Ben's at 1:30.
Yes.
She stayed for a couple minutes. It takes, like you said, the 10 minutes to drive back over to her place.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben says about 15 minutes after Angie left, she called him.
So
She was back for maybe 5 minutes.
back for maybe 5 minutes. So Ben probably got a call around like 1:50 to 1:55. Because if she only stayed for a couple minutes, so assuming between like 1:30
Yes.
to 1:40-ish, 10-minute drive, 5 minutes after that. And the reason I'm trying to narrow this down is because hiccups,
Such a short time frame.
that's such a short time frame to enact that amount of physical violence, that this does have to be an incredibly strong, or at least incredibly large person.
Yes.
That's a lot of violence in a very short period of time.
Yeah, because Ben called the cops at 2:17.
And he had gotten there, he'd probably been circling for anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes, walk it back.
Well, and he went to the convenience store and back.
Convenience store and back. Yeah. Oh no. I hate that this has now popped into my brain. The fact that the assailant's hand was on Angie's mouth. My brain is going to, because of the short time frame here, when Ben went to check the convenience store, I'm wondering if that is when the killer snuck out.
There are theories that Angie was being actively killed when Ben was at the door knocking.
Oh my God.
But to be honest, if I was Ben, I would never want to know.
No. Oh my God. No, that would be enough to
ever want to know.
break me.
Yeah.
Even the thought of the potential of that having happened would break me. So knowing for sure, I don't think I'd ever forgive myself.
No. Yeah.
No, which is why I'm telling you right now, if I'm ever concerned about you and you are having any, if you're in the bathroom even, just like, let me know, yell, because I will scale the side of your house to make sure I can find you.
Well, this is also why we have keys and codes to each other's houses. So
yes, we do. Sorry, I'm just processing.
No, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
And this is probably a good time to mention, if we're laughing, we do not find this funny. That's kind of what we do when our brain is processing information and when we are in shock.
Yes, the running, it's not even a joke. But what we say to each other a lot is, we're not laughing because it's funny. We're laughing because what?
Yeah. Yep. And even though I'm the one that did research on this, I'm still processing this, and I'm still not okay with knowing this. So
no. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I see what you meant by wear comfy clothes.
Yeah, I texted Connie last night. I was like, make sure you're wearing comfy clothes.
Yeah. Which we did. We got the big and the baggy out today.
Yeah, you can tell by some of the, when we warn each other, we are in really big baggy clothes. So
we want the comfort clothes. If we know an episode's going to be traumatic, we're usually in something like this.
Yeah. All right, going back to the stab wounds. So 2 penetrated her sternum. All 18 penetrated her left lung, and 8 penetrated her heart. And one of those 8 actually entered and exited her heart. Which the thought with that is that he went fully through, and when he came back, the heart kind of came with it, and that's why it looked like it appeared to be ripped out of her chest.
That is a terrifying amount of force.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to what the first officer said when he was quoted again in 2010, years later, where he felt like this was evil preying on innocence, true evil preying on innocence. I'm not even seeing the pictures. I'm just hearing the descriptions, and I'd say that was a very apt descriptor that he gave.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's photos on this. I don't care to see them. This is enough of a picture in my head. I don't want to see it.
Nope. I'm good. Nope. That's why we don't include crime scene photos on this podcast. If you really want to see it, you can look it up.
Yep.
We don't want to see it.
Nope. We might, insert pictures of the victim, but
Mhm.
that's about it.
Mhm.
Eventually if I figure out how to do that. If not, you are always more than welcome to Google to your heart's content.
Mhm.
So the murder weapon was an instrument that was sharp on one side and blunt on another and was approximately 2 to 4 inches in length. And this is consistent with a knife.
The hell? Did he grab a steak knife or a paring knife? I was thinking the butcher or the chef knife.
I was too, but apparently not. So I'm assuming it's like one of the little ones which that makes it even more terrifying that you got that through the sternum.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's like literally like the steak knives I have back there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, this is more and more monstrous.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So a sexual assault kit was used to preserve evidence and was sent to the crime lab to be analyzed. They found the secretions to be semen. Yep. So semen in a healthy female will break down, or if they get up and move, it will naturally just drain out. That's how gravity works. It was still inside her, not broken down at all. So this means that she must not have moved at all after it occurred, and she was also stabbed while lying down.
Oh, does that mean he assaulted her after he stabbed her?
So we will kind of talk about that in a minute here. So I will say that the intercourse was obviously non-consensual and occurred near or at the time of death. So they're thinking it was either right before or during. Yeah.
Okay. Awful. Again, true evil.
Yeah. One thing that they did learn from the sexual assault kit was that the person was what's called a non-secretor. So this is coming from the National Institute of Health. A secretor is one who secretes their blood type antigens into their body fluids like saliva and mucus. A non-secretor either secretes very, very little, like we're talking trace amounts, or none at all of their blood type antigens into those fluids. So about 80% of people are secretors and about 20% are non-secretors. So we're working with the 20% here, which is the smaller population, luckily. So going into the police investigation here. The initial persons of interest were Ben McCall, the boyfriend, Russell Buchanan, the friend who went out with her that night, Lance Johnson, and Joseph Barlow, which we will get to them in a second here. Ben was the first to be interviewed, being interviewed only hours after the murder took place. He provided written statements and consented to a search of his truck and apartment. He gave blood and saliva samples and agreed to a scraping of his fingernails. There was no blood or hair found in the fingernail scrapings. They also compared Ben's DNA to that found from the rape kit, and Ben was eliminated as the blood type was not a match, and there was no significant items recovered from the search. That was my typo. He was a secretor.
Ben was.
Ben was a secretor, so he
Okay.
was eliminated as a suspect.
Gotcha. Because we know it's a non-secretor.
Correct. Yep.
He's also acting like an innocent man. A guilty man would not have been like, yeah, search all of it, take all the samples, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, no. He was immediately like, do whatever you have to do.
Yeah. Which is
go search whatever you
understandable.
need to do. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the next suspect was Russell Buchanan. Police actually had trouble locating Russell initially, which made him even more high on their list. So the reason for this was he had a wedding to attend that weekend, so he left immediately on the Saturday morning, attended the wedding at the Dallas Country Club, and then flew to Houston to be with his parents immediately after. All this was previously set up and planned.
Okay. And he's got witnesses corroborating his statement?
I think we'll get to it in a second. We'll get to it. So he came home on Sunday, October 14th, and was not aware of Angie's death.
And remind me again, since we've had a few interruptions here.
Yeah.
What was the year this was taking place? 80.
Uno más. I want to say 4, but I want to say it's 84, but
I was going to say, I know you said she entered college in 81.
mm-hmm.
If she's living off campus, probably junior or senior year.
84.
It is 84.
Yep, so her
Okay,
junior year.
So October of 84 is what we're looking at. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So I have no idea if the wedding was on a Saturday. I just said it was a Saturday. I don't know. He attended a wedding and then went and flew to Houston to visit his family, and then came home on Sunday, October 14th, and supposedly was not aware of Angie's death. After arriving home, he was welcomed with a knock on the door and several police officers with their guns drawn.
I get it, because he was MIA.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm just imagining you come back from vacation, you know nothing. You open the door to that, you're going to have questions.
A lot of questions.
Unless you're the murderer, then you know.
Exactly. And you have to put on a good show. So, reasons why Russell was looked at so heavily by police. Russell was with Angie the night she died. They went to the nightclub together. And his behavior and statements after Angie's murder raised red flags to the officer. According to them, he was inconsistent with the timeline of events from that night, and this made it difficult to verify his alibi.
I mean, yes, I can see how that'd be tricky, but let's also remember that these are college students and they're out for a night clubbing. Like,
they're not paying attention to the time.
No, which is why those statements are so varied. Like, oh, dropped off between, like 12:45 and 1:30, but then she was also dropped off between 12:45 and 1:30.
Yeah.
Like, they're not paying attention.
No, they're not.
No. Which is maybe a good idea to pay attention to the time around you, but when you're out having fun.
Yeah. Also, the other thing was that Angie rejected him. And people saw that it was kind of more publicly rejection, too.
Oh, so she rejected him at the club? Like he was making moves at the club?
That's what it sounded like.
Oh, I thought it was like he had made moves prior to going out to the club and Angie had denied.
It was that night.
That night.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There were mixed information coming from sources, which we've had a lot. I mean, we've had a lot. I read from one source that he made advances towards Angie when they were in the VIP room, that it was just when they were at the club. And then others said that she dropped him off, then dropped Anna off, then went back to his place and he made advances toward, or she brought him to her place and he made advances towards her and she said no. So at some point during the night, he made an advance.
And she rejected.
Yes.
Okay.
So mixed sources don't really know which one it was.
Well, of course, because it's a gossip train at that point.
Yeah, it is.
Like, we all remember those nights. Well, the very few times I went out clubbing with girlfriends. Like,
people like to twist information.
Oh my God, yes. Especially if alcohol is involved.
Yeah. Well, especially, like, what a big thing it would be if a girl in the 80s was dating a guy but then brought home another guy. Like, rumor mill. I need to stop doing
that. Moving your notes, yep.
Yeah, because I do this and then it lands on the page down button and it goes all the way down to page 8.
Yeah. No. And again, we're not like, throwing out the Russell option. And
No.
I don't know anything. I'm just going through my own investigative process here because I remember hearing plenty of rumors about me where actually I found out that a girl decided that she wouldn't live with one of my roommates and I sophomore year of college because we were, and I quote, too big of sluts, end quote. I cannot describe to you how unmerited that conclusion is.
It was, I know y'all don't really know, well, some of you know us, but I know the majority of y'all don't know us, but that is not, not even remotely close.
It was with my husband. Well, he was my boyfriend at the time, but now he's my husband.
But same with your roommates too.
Same with my roommate. Yeah, like not even a little.
Long-term relationships.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. So it's one of those where I'm like, I'm pretty sure what happened. This is a little side note, but we're getting there. I'm pretty sure what happened is I had a friend from high school who went to college with me. And I don't think he's ever come out, but he is very, very flamboyant. And so he was a commuter and I had my dorm on campus. So sometimes before classes in the first couple of weeks of the semester, he would just come and hang out in my dorm with me while I was getting ready. And I'm like, it's no big deal. And I'm sure she probably saw that because she lived in the dorm across from me.
Rumors.
And rumors spiral. And here we are. So that's why it's like, it's kind of hard with these he said, she said's on these nights where it takes one little thing and people just.
Exactly. So we will never know fully which story it was. We just know that he made an advance towards her and she, it said politely but sternly rejected him.
Which is what you do when it's a guy friend making a move on you.
Yes. So Russell underwent an interrogation, the initial interrogation, and then a polygraph test. It sounds like he did several interrogations and several polygraph tests. The first ones were like fine, and then they finally started to say that the polygraph test was non-conclusive.
I mean, polygraphs are kind of a non-conclusive, and we have moved away from using those in courts because they are inconclusive.
But they were initially like fine. They were initially fine. It almost sounded, reading all this, it sounds like
they wanted it to be him.
And they were kind of harassing him.
This does sound like a harassment. Multiple rounds of polygraphs. I understand like maybe doing 2. Like,
sounded like it was more than that. Like, well, more than that.
Yeah. See, and that's where it's like, especially if they're conclusive the first 2 times or genuinely. Not generally.
Oh, generally.
They're generally truthful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And plus.
And I mean, several interrogations.
But I also get where they're coming from because, like, that seems like
number
motive.
one suspect. Yeah. So he was he eventually was kind of put in a corner and had to get a lawyer because they would not leave him alone. But another big reason why they wouldn't leave him alone, he was found to be a non-secretor.
Okay, this is making more sense. That being said, though, that's sounding coincidental because 20% of the population is a massive number of people.
It is. I mean, your pool is a lot smaller than 80, but still, it's common. Your uncommons are like 0.0001.
Yeah. It's your 6-fingered people.
Yeah.
That one, smaller pool.
Yeah.
Not as small as you'd think, though. Apparently, it's actually dominant to have 6 fingers, and 5 fingers is a recessive. Unless I'm misremembering one of my biology courses, but I'm pretty sure it was the other way around.
I don't remember.
Yeah, 6-hand is supposed, or 6-hand.
6-hand.
Hands.
That would be kind of weird.
We're all Indian gods. No, 6 fingers is supposed to be the dominant, and 5 is the recessive.
Well, anyways. So Angie's best friend was named Sheila Wasaki. I'm just assuming that's how her last name is pronounced. She also believed that Russell was the one who killed her best friend, and Sheila was determined to help solve this case. She maintained close contact with the police and offered her assistance in any way. Shortly after Angie's murder, police asked Sheila to help get a confession out of Russell. The police asked Sheila to wear a wire during a dinner with Russell. They hoped that in a more relaxed setting, away from cops and with friends, Russell would say something incriminating.
That is a tactic, yes. They're really pushing on this guy.
They are really, really, really pushing on him.
And
they really think that this guy is the guy.
Because he doesn't technically have an alibi for that exact time because he was home at his apartment. And the last person who can corroborate his whereabouts puts him with Angie.
Exactly.
Okay,
you can see it, but also, you're harassing this guy.
You can see it, but also he's being very cooperative so far.
Yeah.
Up to the point of harassment.
Yep.
Which, at that point, I get it. And, it kind of feels like maybe too much energy is being focused in the wrong place in the investigation, where, I feel like you should never narrow yourself down into one suspect without some damn good definitive and evidential proof. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you potentially put on blinders and you miss out on who the actual criminal is.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
Mm-hmm. So Sheila and Russell met for dinner, and when they sat down, Sheila recalls, quote, "I'm thinking I'm sitting here having dinner with a murderer, with Angie's murderer," end quote. And the entire interaction was recorded. Russell didn't reveal anything incriminating throughout the dinner. He maintained that he was innocent and didn't provide any further details that the police didn't already know. Russell was not ruled out as a suspect. Lance Johnson was the next suspect. He was one of Angie's former boyfriends. He even admitted that he once threatened Angie with a knife.
Hence why he's a former boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. But he was ruled out as a suspect because it was confirmed that Lance was asleep at his parents' home in Amarillo during the time of the crime, and through testing, Lance was found to be a secretor. So the next suspect was Joseph Patrick Barlow. He was a student at SMU. He told police that he had a huge crush on Angie. Angie had also at one point received harassment notes from a Patrick shortly before the murder. And being that that's his middle name, they're kind of wondering if that was him. Joseph was also a non-secretor, but was eliminated as a suspect because he had a firm alibi, supposedly. Police continued to look for more suspects and looked into people Angie would have interacted with on a daily basis, like a mechanic, carpet installers, because she just had new carpet placed, maintenance workers, landscapers, people like that. They also looked into individuals who were previously arrested for rape who were not incarcerated at the time of the crime and compared their fingerprints to the ones that were found at the crime. The case went cold. Yeah. Do you have thoughts so far?
I'm postulating a couple of theories here. It does seem... Okay. My brain is going to the same spot that any woman who is listening to this podcast is going to go to the same spot. It is between arguably 1:50 and 2:30 in the morning. Who do you let into your home?
This was the 80s.
This was it. This was the 80s. That's right. God, we were a gullible people. But even still, there's got to be some...
There's also a thought that just popped in my head. If it was Russell, why was she so scared? If it was Russell, why didn't she say Russell's here on the phone?
That was the other... That was the other thing that I was thinking about, where I'm like, anytime I've been in whatever of a situation, and I was in a situation that could have gone very poorly. You know, I called you right after, where I was closing shift at the pub by myself, and a dude, I know that was the last time that ever happened. I made a big stink about it.
Which if you're in situations like that, your safety is worth it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I made a stink afterwards where I'm like, I don't care that we're saving on labor costs. Like, no women close by themselves ever again. But that was a whole, I ended up calling my friend who was the bartender who hadn't come in that night because we were slow. And I knew he was up waiting for the text to make sure I made it home and closed out okay. And so I called him, and immediately I pretended that he was my now father-in-law, the one who had owned the pub. I'm like, oh, yep, nope. I still just have, one guy here. Yep, nope, I'm closing up. This is oh, yep, nope, thanks for being here, dude. And like I had his name off of the credit card receipt. And so I'm pretty sure I said it there. But like I made it very clear to that guy that I was making it known that he was there. And I even made a point of saying like, oh, yep, nope. Oh, hey, you can see me on the cameras. And like did all of that where because I felt threatened, I was making sure
they knew if they wanted to do anything, they wouldn't get away with it.
Exactly. And thank God I made it out of there okay.
Yeah.
And like I count my lucky stars. That was one of the scariest nights I've had in a very, very long time. Called Jess actually crying after I got out of there.
That was a rough night.
That was a really, really, really rough night. But like I was giving as much description as I could of a dude who was pretty much a stranger. And so I'm very surprised. And I'm not blaming Angie. I'm just very surprised.
She didn't do the same.
She didn't, which leads me to believe that it was a complete stranger. Like absolutely nothing. So she wouldn't have had anything to say other than like, 6'4", dark hair, whatever it was, which would have been tipping off this guy and escalating the violence. So that's where I'm thinking this has to be a stranger to Angie. Maybe not a stranger in the regard they may have been stalking Angie and they knew about her, but this is not someone that she was intimately familiar with. That's where my brain goes.
Okay. Well, let's go back to Sheila.
Oh, yeah, Sheila.
Yep. So Sheila never gave up hope and was determined to find answers. She had called over 750 times to plead with the police to review this case over the years, but was told, quote, some cases just aren't meant to be solved.
I know what they're trying to say with that.
I get it.
There's such a better way to say that.
But also, this is the 80s. And they, well, I mean, over the years, but like in the 80s when this occurred, their technology was not where it was even in the early 2000s.
Even in the 90s.
Even in the 90s, yeah. Huge advancements were made between the 80s and 2000. Huge. So Sheila was determined that this case was not going to be one of those cases, though. Good
friend.
Yep, really good friend. One day, Sheila had a vision of Angie. Sheila interpreted this as a sign that she needed to take action and help her solve her friend's murder after nearly 2 decades. She set up what she called as a war room. She went over all the facts in the case files and everything and just kind of put it all out there. And Sheila decided that she would become a private investigator and became one in 2004. Sheila helped detectives locate their supposedly lost evidence that contained the DNA from Angie's killer.
How the hell you lose that?
Exactly. From the sounds of it, she never came out and said that because Sheila obviously has done a lot of magazines and stories and stuff. From the sounds of it, it sounded like they were just telling her it was lost. Why I used air quotes for those of you listening. It sounds like they just didn't want to reopen her case. So they told her that it was lost. Yeah,
Well, then excuse me. I guess my manners are just lost because I'm about to tell you all about yourself.
Yeah. So, There was a break in the case in 2006 when Detective Linda Crum took over the case. Now, Detective Crum and Sheila had a conversation in 2006, and then Crum decided to officially reopen Angie's case. Sheila had been advocating for the case to be re-examined with modern forensic techniques. Crum sent the preserved evidence to the Dallas County Crime Lab for reanalysis, and using the new DNA testing technique, the DNA obtained from the semen samples didn't match any of the initial suspects, which cleared Russell Buchanan's name. He was not the killer.
But he had 20 years
of so many people thinking that he was the one.
Not great.
No. I know that's why every time I'm like, I feel so bad for Russell, because everyone's like, it's this guy. It's clear as day, it's this guy.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. The rejecting a guy has been the motivation for many murders of women and violent acts towards them. Yeah.
Some of them can just take rejection, which it didn't sound like Russell made a big scene when she rejected him or anything.
Yeah. That's simple.
Yeah.
Which, let that be a lesson to anyone listening. You know, the whole, if a girl tells you no, you just gotta keep going until you get a yes. No.
Stop. Take no for an answer.
Take no for an answer. And if you are a woman who thinks that you have to say no and play hard to get some help, get some therapy.
That's like a high school thing, and leave it as a high school thing if that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's an immaturity thing. Be straightforward. We can all be adults here, unless you're a literal child. In that case, why are you watching this video? Do your mom and dad know what you're doing?
Yeah, you shouldn't be here.
Thank you, but
maybe let them watch. You can watch in a couple years.
Yes. Yeah, this is maybe PG-13. Nah, I swear a little bit. We're R.
Is swearing R? Oh, okay. Well, then we're probably R.
I think you get one F-bomb in a PG-13.
Oh, well, I think we're past that.
Well past.
Yeah. Yeah, so Russell's name is now cleared. The DNA profile was entered into a combined DNA index system, which is a national database of DNA profiles from convicted offenders. They found a match. The DNA matched Donald Andrew Best Jr. He was a convicted rapist who was serving a life sentence for another crime. He had a history of violent sexual assault and was in the area at the time of Angie's murder. Detective Crum obtained a picture of Bess around the time frame of the crime. He was 36 years old at that time, about 6 feet tall, and somewhere between 250 and 260 pounds.
Big dude.
Which Angie could not have fought him off.
No, I would struggle with that, and I am a slightly larger than average woman in the U.S.
I put me up against I'm thinking like my CrossFitter buddy. Like, that's the weight we're talking about.
We're talking about the one that married you, right?
Yeah. That is that weight. That fits that weight. I think he's slightly less than that right now, but like,
I don't think he's as tall as that.
He's not as tall as that, but still, I'm just talking like the mass. I think now he's like 240, but like, even still, he's 240 and he's shorter, and there is no way in heck I could take him on.
Nope, not without playing dirty. Which, in a fight for your life,
you play dirty. But even still, I don't think that would
stop
anything.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Thank God he's the sweetest human being in the world.
I know, he's the nicest person. Sorry if you ever watched that, but like, no. Sorry to compare you to that, but like,
we're just muscle mass.
just muscle mass to get a picture in our head.
This is that would explain all the force required for that amount of extreme violence in the time period it was.
Yep.
Hold on. he was in the area with a history. Was he released after serving time for similar crimes, and that's why he was in the area?
So, yes, he was out on parole at that time. He had a history of violent crimes, including sexual assault, and had been convicted of rape and aggravated assault. And he was out on parole at the time of this.
So, for those who don't remember our Drew Shodine episode, check it out. It is messed up.
As a lot of our Wednesday episodes are.
As they are. That one, the murderer in that case, a man named, I believe, is Alfonso Rodriguez, he had been released after serving time for similar charges. And he was released as a level 3 sex offender. And that means that you are highly likely to reoffend.
Yeah.
So the prison system here in the U.S., while you think it would be set up to hold these psychos, it's not. Sometimes they are released because of overcrowding, funding, who knows what. But yeah, in Rodriguez's case, what was it, 6-7 months after he had been released, or 6-7
Pretty darn
weeks?
short time, yeah.
Pretty darn short time, he gets a hold of Drew Shodine, and
yeah.
well, now she's a Wednesday episode.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Not good. That's also something that we do. It's like with the laughing. When we're saying good, it's not good.
It's sarcasm.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Cynicism, really.
Yeah. So the detectives went to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and interviewed Bess for about an hour. Crum states that Bess was initially, quote, arrogant and just kind of sitting back, end quote. His demeanor abruptly changed when he was told the date of Angie's murder, though. And he agreed to give a written statement.
So he's already serving life for a different crime.
Mm-hmm.
They get a DNA match.
Mm-hmm.
They go talk to him. And at first, he's a cocky son of a biscuit.
Yep.
And then when they say, we're talking to you about the murder that happened on
October 12th of 84.
Oh, I thought it was the 13th because it was the
October
next morning.
12th.
Oh, my bad.
I'm so confident until just now.
I thought you said October 13th. Or maybe I saw it when I opened the tab. You are so licky.
October 12th, 1984.
Okay, so murder date, October 12th, 1984. And then all of a sudden, he's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll give you a statement.
Mm-hmm. The statement is not what you hope it would be.
Okay.
So, quote, I got out of prison on parole in March of 1984. So, really not that, yeah. A couple months. During that summer, I went to Dallas to visit some friends. Over the next several months, I visited Dallas 3 or 4 times. At the time, I was living and working in Houston. During my visits to Dallas, I met 2 or 3 women. Mostly, I would meet them at a bar in the Oak Lawn area. One lady was from California and was in Dallas for a foosball tournament. I went with her to a hotel in Irving, and we had sex. Another lady I met, I went with her to Gainesbury. I think we spent the weekend there. And then he emphasized this sentence here. I remember another girl that I met at a bar, but I don't remember anything about her. He continues, I have never hurt anyone. Most of the rest of 1984, I stayed home in Houston and worked. During sex with any girl, I have never been violent.
Your current conviction says otherwise, my dude.
Mm-hmm. All right. Before even meeting with him, police obtained a search warrant for a buccal swab, Buccal, and this went to...
Buccal.
Buccal.
Is
What
it
did I
buccal?
say? Did I say buckle?
No, wait, you're right. It is buccal because that's the whole buccal fat removal that
I don't
everyone
know what
did.
it's called.
That's why all the celebrities are all of a sudden like,
Oh.
yeah, because they
Okay.
take all the fat out of their cheeks to make them look thinner. But it actually ages you really bad as you get older because you need that fat.
More you know. This was sent to somewhere called DWIFTS, DWIFTS, for DNA analysis. They also conducted DNA testing from that was obtained during Angie's autopsy as well. The lab confirmed that Bess's DNA matched. That day, a capital murder charge was filed against Bess. All right, so now the trial.
And this is Texas. So you get in a capital punishment charge. Ooh, honey. Have fun.
You know what's coming. So, opening statements for the prosecution. The prosecution presented a compelling case emphasizing the strong DNA evidence linking Bess to the crime scene. They highlighted Bess's criminal history, particularly his previous convictions for violent sexual offenses, to establish a pattern of behavior. Yeah. I've never hurt any of the girls I've had sex with. BS.
Oh, you son of a... Unless he's like, I don't consider what I did to them in the crime as having sex. That was just carnal desire. So if you only say sex, then the ones I had sex with and didn't kill, it's true. Psychopaths have horrible, amazing self-reasoning, but it's horrible.
Yeah. Okay. So, opening statements for the defense was the defense argued that the DNA evidence was not conclusive and questioned the handling and testing of the evidence. They might have attempted to present alternative theories or doubt the accuracy of the DNA matched.
Was there an issue in the chain of evidence? I don't think so. They're not going to screw... They better not have screwed this up with the handling of it.
We did have a case with the issues.
Yeah, the Joan Benet case. If that should have come out by now. If you want to talk about screwing up chain of evidence and really just kind of screwing up everything from the beginning.
Yeah, that one's a doozy. So for the evidence presentation, starting with DNA evidence, the prosecution introduced the DNA profile obtained from the semen samples collected at the crime scene. Experts testified about the reliability of the DNA testing and how the profile matched Bess's DNA. Next, for witnesses, there are several witnesses, including forensic experts, law enforcement officials, and possibly Sheila Wachowski, providing testimony. Their accounts helped to establish the timeline and significance of the evidence found. For criminal history, the prosecution presented Bess's prior convictions to demonstrate his propensity for violent crimes, which was consistent with the nature of Angie's murder. The defense's argument, the defense may have tried to cast doubt on the DNA evidence, question the integrity of the investigation, or suggest alternative suspects. They also attempted to undermine the credibility of the prosecution's witnesses.
He's a non-secretor. We know that, right? Yeah. He's a non-secretor. The buccal tissue sample matched.
Mm-hmm.
The semen matched.
Yep.
He was in the area at the time. History of extremely violent sexual crimes.
Yep. Yeah. For closing arguments for the prosecution emphasized the overwhelming evidence against Bess, including the DNA match and criminal history, and argued that he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes. That's what you're trying to prove in every case. And yes.
Yeah. The defense summarized their arguments, reiterating points about lack of direct evidence linking Bess to the crime beyond DNA, or addressed inconsistencies they believed existed in the prosecution's case.
I'm sorry. I'm not an expert. Must be said every episode. We are not. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're probably not.
Yep. DNA evidence is pretty damn conclusive.
Unless you have reason to believe when they lost the evidence, they magically came up with new evidence, but they didn't, because they had her clothing still, and everything was the same.
Yep.
Everything was the same. All the procedures were followed as they should have.
Yeah. No, I get the defense. I've said it before in other episodes. Everyone has a right to a good defense in a court of law, big or small. It should be fair for all. It's not always. But I get it why the defense is doing what they're doing. And also, in the case of Drew Chodine with Rodriguez, that case was opened for resentencing, years later, because of arguments that the defense didn't do their job in the first trial. So, I understand where the defense is coming from.
Yep.
Doesn't mean I like it, but I understand.
Exactly. You ready for the verdict and sentencing?
Oh, I hope this isn't going to spike my blood pressure.
So 1, the jury deliberation. After closing arguments, the jury deliberated on the evidence presented. They had to decide whether Bess was guilty of the charges based on the standards of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The verdict in 2010. Oh yeah, this all happened in 2010, if I didn't say that. I don't know if I said that or not.
You mentioned 2010 earlier, but now we know that this is in 2010.
This all takes place in
2008
the verdict.
2010.
Yeah, 2000. Thank you.
Yep.
My brain just farted. I was like, oh no.
I gotcha.
All between 2008 and 2010, all this is taking place.
Yep. The second part where we've got the DNA evidence matching.
Correct.
Yes, that is now later.
Thank you for filling that in. My brain just poof. So the verdict in 2010, Donald Andrew Bess Jr. was found guilty of capital murder. The jury's decision was based on the compelling DNA evidence and Bess's criminal history. For sentencing, following the conviction, a separate sentencing phase took place where the jury determined the appropriate punishment. Bess was sentenced to death for his crimes. So, on death row, there were several dates set for execution, but Bess made several appeals that challenged various aspects of his conviction and sentence. Some of these things were errors during the trial, issues with handling evidence, and claims of ineffective legal representation.
Yep, that's what we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like they did a pretty decent job trying to find any hole they could.
Yeah.
It's not their fault that there wasn't any holes.
But again, you throw in an appeal, the date goes away because they have to...
It does have to go through. You do have the constitutional right to appeal.
Yep. So before an execution can proceed, all possible legal avenues for an appeal and review must be exhausted. This is a legal requirement to ensure that the prisoner has every opportunity to contest their convictions and sentence. Sometimes, defensive teams use delay tactics to prolong the execution dates. This can involve filing new motions, seeking stays of execution, or requesting additional reviews. While on death row, Bess faced several health problems. Reports indicated that he suffered from various medical issues, including heart disease, which was compounded by the conditions of life on death row.
Boo-hoo. Surprised he has a heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he knows how to get a heart out of a body, so he could just figure that out. Hypothetical. Not admissible in a court of law. Not making a suggestion.
No, we're not. On December 6, 2021, Bess died of a heart attack while in prison. His death occurred before his execution could be carried out. So, little conclusion here for y'all to kind of just tie it up a little bit, leave you on a more better note, I guess. Um, After Bess was convicted, Sheila and Russell met to discuss the case and the emotional toll it took on both of them. Sheila apologized to Russell for the distress and emotional pain he went through as a suspect. She also apologized for wrongfully suspecting him. Russell accepted her apology with gratitude and forgiveness.
That's
And I'm
really
tearing
good.
up.
That's really good. That
Oh.
takes a huge amount of, I don't
Oh,
even have a
gosh.
word, gumption. I know, I'm not looking at you. I can't.
I have mixed feelings about,
Death penalty.
well, death penalty, but also this case. Like,
I know.
it took until 2020. He appealed and appealed and appealed until 2021, when he died. So he appealed for 11 years.
I know. This is one where I'm glad the justice system did what it was supposed to do, and that appeals are there for a reason.
I do agree with that, yes.
It's just really awful that can be used by some awful people.
But also, one silver lining, I guess, in this is that he was behind bars the whole time.
Not more victims, yes. That is good. Angie should never have been in his path.
No, she shouldn't have.
No, that's just such an extreme violence, and I don't. Coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Hindsight is 2020.
Do not let strangers into your home.
No, I know we're
well past that, but
yes.
like,
which even actually funny on that, what had just happened, like what in the last 30 minutes, the interruption that we just had.
oh yeah,
Like we literally just had, and it's cut out, but someone rang my doorbell, and so it was a random guy. He's selling services in the neighborhood. But as I'm out there, I know that Jess is behind me at the door. Where I'm like, I'm not inviting him in. And I know Jess has got my back here, but we're just so much more cautious nowadays. And it's because of stuff like this.
yeah. It sucks to say, but you really can't trust anyone.
Yes, you want to be able to trust people. And, you also have to be cautious and safe about it. And again, not blaming Angie in any way, just you have to take something from these awful cases.
Learn something.
And this is what we'll take. Just
Yep.
a reaffirmation of do not let strangers into your home.
Yeah. This was a very unfortunate case. It was a rough case. But I'm glad that, Sheila and Russell were able to meet and talk after they found who truly killed Angie.
Yeah.
After Russell being the prime suspect for 20 years.
That's insane.
Yeah. It was
Longer.
23 years, I think.
Well, in 1984, in case finally, they said they got the match in like what, 09?
Ooh, hang
So
on.
like 25 years.
They got the match in 2006.
Oh, they got the match in 2006. So yeah, 22 years.
22 years of people looking at you thinking that you killed one of your friends.
I'm really glad that the two of them had that opportunity to have that connection.
Yep.
Again, all this case kind of comes out to a net zero. There isn't a good, there's an awful. I mean, it is awful, but like it just net zero.
Yeah. After typing the notes, and even now, I just feel like I need to go cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
It,
A lot of emotions. A
Yeah.
lot.
yeah.
You can't be naive and nice.
If you're going to be nice, you need to be a massive mother.
Yeah.
You need to be able to protect yourself beyond just having a gun or something. Like you need to be physically imposing.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. How sad is that? Well, hopefully, you guys are able to take something from this episode.
Yeah.
Not sure what, but we do appreciate you listening. Any other final thoughts other than, ugh?
No.
Okay. Well, we're now going to get some snacks and then we're going to do our Twilight reaction because we need something happy or crappy in this case.
Twilight movie reaction.
Twilight movie reaction. Yes, yes. So if you're looking for something a little more lighthearted and you would like to see us just absolutely drag Edward and Bella through the dirt with love, a little, check out our Twilight reactions. They
Yeah.
post every Saturday. We have just wrapped up the first book. We will be getting into New Moon sometime in the next near future. But we appreciate you joining us today. And anything else?
Nope. The next Twilight episode that's coming out on Saturday for you guys will be chapters 22 and 23. And then we have one more final episode that will be coming out the next week, and then our movie reaction after that.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Just a reminder, we would very much appreciate a like, subscribe, and follow for our trauma bonds. Please.
Welcome to the trauma bond.
Welcome. Subscribe. You can find us at all of our social medias, which are TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram. The handle for all four is at Chaos Chronicles Podcast, and that's Chronicles with an S.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. We will see you either on Saturday or next week for who knows what.
New trauma. Yay!
Yay! Bye.
Adios. I don't even know do we need hugs? Chocolate? Running? Justice? Justice. Justice. Drinks. Let's get some tea.
Yeah.